Dracula movie reviews, and this time we will be looking at Dracula Untold. I am your host, Red Hood 29. Let's get into this video. So, this is uh, Dracula Untold is a new modern day retelling of the classic Dracula, and it starts off with Transylvania and how Vlad the Impaler came to be. They said he once impaled a whole bunch of people in an army, and but now he's just a humble man, a humble ruler. Turns out everything is all good. His son is no good. His wife is good. Turns out in a banquet, the Turks, they demand 1,000 boys to serve in their army. And Vlad was like, hey, no, not really. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. He was like, hey, you have no choice. This, that, and the third. Either you give up, your son, or we'll come and take him. And so, Vlad, being the man that he is, came up with a plan to fake out them, and hey, I'm gonna pretend to give you up, but I'm not gonna give you up. And so, but let me back up, cause Vlad actually traveled to a cave throughout the beginning of the movie, and all his men got slaughtered, and then he was the one who was left alive in the cave. Turns out it's a grand vampire who left him alive but slaughtered all his men. That, don't worry, that's gonna come back shortly. So after they all meet up at this clearing, he winds up, yeah, so after they all meet up at this clearing, uh the Sultan, the Sultan's right hand man, he was like, hey, uh hand over your son, and your kingdom will be spared, something like that. And then they pretended that Vlad pretended to hand him over, but he didn't do it, and winds up slaughtering his about four or five guards. And then he's he was like, hey, I'm going to get he was like, hey, what do you plan on doing? He was like, something he's like, hey, I plan on, becoming evil for the greater good, and winds up traveling back to the cave where he meets the grand elder vampire, and he makes a deal with them. He was like, hey, how many men have you killed? He was like, hundreds. He was like, hey, don't lie to me. He was like, you lie to me, I will feed you your intestines, sir. He was like, thousands. He was like, that's why they call you Vlad the Impaler. He was like, what do you seek to get? He was like, I just seek to save my kingdom. It was like, you got to do good. It was like, you got to become bad to, do some good. And it was like, so be it. He was like, hey, you drink this, you will have powers beyond your comprehension. If you could, resist for 3 days, you will turn back into a human, back into a mortal. He was like, if you cannot, all those that, who the very same person that bound me here, I will be set free. It is a great game that we play. And then, this, you know, begins the bit between Dracula and the Grand Vampire. And he winds up dying and like getting like powers. And so he's like, hey, like, I did this to save you. He tells his wife, he was like, hey, I did this to save you. This, that, and the third. Vlad's wife's like, what did you do to save me? He was like, hey, I turned into a vampire. And so, like, one of the battles, like, one of the battles, he single handedly defeated a lot of, like, Turkish soldiers by himself. He was like, hey, I'm going to go by myself. And then, they wind up camping in the woods. Yeah, they wind up camping in the woods. And, his son gets kidnapped, his wife gets kidnapped, and, he winds up, saving them. One of I think it was the priest, winds up setting a hut on fire with him trapped inside. And then, like, he screams in pain, but then, like, comes out of the fire. Like, he comes out of the fire and gives this, like, most badass speech. He was like, hey, you think you're alive, you can fight? He was like, no, you're alive because of me, of what I did to protect y'all. And then, like, they wind up recapturing the son, and then they wind up recapturing the son and the wife. While he's on top of this tower, he winds up summoning a giant swarm of bats to like annihilate a good portion of the people inside of the Turkish army. While he's there, like, one of the Turkish soldiers winds up pushing Vlad's wife off of the tower. He tries to save her, but she winds up dying, so he bites her. Thus freeing the elder Grand Vampire. Thus freeing the elder Grand Vampire. So, after that, he winds up turning his own soldiers into vampires to fight. Actually, I take that back. He winds up going head to head with the head, Turkish boss, and winds up killing him, and then turning his men to vampires. But the thing is, to try to, suck the life out of his son, and he winds up, oh my gosh, he did the most badass thing, like anybody could have thought possible. Like, the clouds were parted, right? Like, because sunlight was his weakness. Yeah, sunlight was his weakness. He winds up, like, opening up the clouds to reveal the sun. He was like, oh, you gonna come after my kid? Nah. And burnt all of the vampires, including himself. And the priest or whoever he was at the start of the movie, who had, burned him inside of the hut building, took his son. His son became king. His son became king, melted down all of the silver, and made it into muskets. A follower of Dracula, of Vlad, like, gave him his, like, cut open his hand and gave him his blood so that he could heal. And yeah, fast forward to, today, and Vlad is just walking around the city. He winds up bumping into a reincarnation of his wife, and they wind up, talking and, talking and chit chatting it up. And wouldn't you know it, the Grand Vampire is just sitting there watching them, talking about some let the games begin. And this this has been Dracula Untold, one of my personal favorite, Dracula movies that showcase like the true power of like Dracula himself. Yeah, like I'm glad that they came out with Dracula Untold. I'm still disappointed that we didn't get a monster cinematic universe with, I'm talking about Dracula, Wolfman, uh, the creature from Black Lagoon, the Mummy. You know, that would have been cool to see. Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein. You know what I'm saying? Like, but all in all, it was enjoyable to watch. As always, this has been Dracula Untold movie review. I'm your host, Red Hood 29. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.